Coming up on this week's edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
We'll discuss beef industry biosecurity and explain why you should have a plan in case of a disease outbreak. Plus, we'll have your summer cattle market outlook from the experts at CattleFax.
And now, NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
Hello and welcome to NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. I'm Kevin Ochsner. We're just a few weeks away from summer and the official kickoff of grilling season. So what does it mean for beef demand and the cattle markets? Joining us now to talk about this topic is Mike Murphy with CattleFax. Mike, as we approach the beginning of summer, what does the beginning of grilling season mean to the beef industry?
Well, historically, when you think about the time frame from Mother's Day into Memorial Day, Father's Day, and the 4th of July, you've got 4 great holidays where we can get the product out there on the grill. And it's always a very positive situation for demand, specifically on the middle meats. And so we would expect to find the same sort of scenario that we've been in. As we look back here so far year to date, 2025 at the retail level is the best demand in 35 years. And so there's no reason to think that that won't continue right on into the spring time frame, knowing that we've got great holiday season in front of us.
You bet. Go ahead.
And I was just going to say, I think one thing to kind of think about, it's a fun fact, is that looking over our shoulder, we had the holiday rib that we traditionally would feature for the Christmas holiday, and it was actually something that a lot of retailers featured for Easter holiday. And so it's interesting to see that beef is trying to kind of command and take that holiday. We already own the Christmas holiday.
Right.
We tried to move into the Thanksgiving a little bit.
Sure.
So anywhere we can find beef on that center plate's a really positive situation for the industry.
Going to replace that Easter ham or a rack of lamb for a prime rib roast. That's very interesting. Let's talk cow-calf sector for just a minute. What do you see approaching us as we look towards the next couple of weeks and months for the cow-calf producer?
Yeah, we're in a situation here where we're coming to that video season, summer contracting season, and on average, we would expect prices to be about 10% higher than where they would have been a year ago. There was a little bit of volatility in that market from the early video season to the late video season. So I think that's why we kind of assume that consistent 10% increase is really the number in line. The positive thing for the cow-calf industry is they look at their buyers, whether it's a stocker operator or the feedlot sector. They've both been very profitable over the course of the last 12 months. And so those dollars will flow back to the cow-calf sector.
Yeah, and speaking of that, in terms of the feedlot industry, it appears placements are down, as we might imagine, a bit. What are your projections for cattle feeders over the next 6 months or so?
We're right at the time frame where we should be finding that spring high, and that marketplace is, right around this 215 to 220 area for kind of a U.S. average. That could extend a little bit deeper into the, say, late May, but then we'll start to trail off and we'll move lower as we go through the summer. By late summer, early fall, expect a Fed market that have risk back to $1.95 to $2. I think our biggest concern right now is the situation between the U.S. and China. The longer that goes on, the greater the risk is that there could be some sort of an economic slowdown that could filter into the U.S. consumer and then maybe pressure prices a little bit more later on. But if we can get that resolved somewhere this summer, then I think that $1.95 to $2 will be good support for the fed cattle sector.
You talk to a lot of people every day. I'm curious, what are you hearing in terms of moisture conditions and anticipation for summer grass? Yeah,
it's really a situation where if you think about from kind of the Missouri River, if you were to try to draw that straight south from, say, Omaha to Kansas City and extending south, if you go east of there, they're in great shape. As you come back west, the farther west you go, farther southwest you go, or northwest, it becomes very dry. Everybody's going to turn cattle out on a normal rate. The question will be is, can they sustain all the way through the summer time frame? And that'll be something that, with what Matt Makins is suggesting, a lot of people are likely going to have to ship early this year if they're turned out at a normal turnout rates.
Yeah, I get it. Final thoughts. What's your advice to cattle producers over the next several months?
Well, I think if we've learned anything in here in the course of the last 60 to 90 days with President Trump and the route that he's kind of going is that it's a volatile world, right? And I think from an economic standpoint, we all have to be able to assess how much of that volatility that we want to accept personally as producers. As we know, and we've talked about before, there's a lot more tools out there for both the cow-calf sector as well as stocker and cattle feeders to be able to mitigate some of that risk out there. So just understanding it's a volatile world and there's opportunities to be able to protect equity in your business.
Right.
And sometimes that's the best strategy, is to try to protect that equity.
That's good advice. Mike, thanks so much for coming and providing your insights.
Thank you.
Now remember, if you're looking for top-notch beef industry research, information, and analysis, then check out the experts at CattleFax. Visit their website at CattleFax.com for the tools you need to make profitable business decisions. Meanwhile, beef exports are a hot topic for the industry. Here's a closer look at the latest numbers.
U.S. beef exports trended higher in March. For the month, shipments to foreign markets totaled just over 109,000 metric tons, up 1% from a year ago. The value reached $922 million, up 4% from a year earlier, and the highest since last June. Export value per head of fed slaughter was the 7th highest ever at nearly $467. For the first quarter of 2025, total U.S. beef export shipments were just over 310,000 metric tons, with a value of over $2.5 billion, up 2% from a year ago. So far this year, Korea remains the leading value market for U.S. beef exports.
Still ahead on Cattlemen to Cattlemen, we'll talk about a valuable tool you can use to create a custom biosecurity plan for your operation. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
You always know where this one is. But what about this one? Or this one? Imagine knowing your machines the way you know your cattle, where they are and what they need. Data like that could make a difference. You can make better decisions for more efficiency, consistency, productivity. That's the power of technology. Get started with Operations Center today.
Are you concerned about the impact government policies could have on your cattle business? One way to make your voice heard in Washington is by joining NCBA. When you join, you'll be part of the nation's oldest and largest national cattle industry organization that has a professional team working in Washington, D.C. on issues that matter to cattle-producing families nationwide. Don't stay on the sidelines. Make your voice heard by joining NCBA today at the website ncba.org.
Biosecurity is crucial to the beef industry because a major animal disease outbreak could be devastating to the entire supply chain. Joining us now to talk more about this topic is Dr. Mike Sanderson of Kansas State University. Dr. Sanderson, we've not seen a case of foot and mouth disease here in the United States for just about a century. Why does it continue to be a concern for the beef industry?
Well, I think it does because of the trade implications were we to get it. That would result probably in a fairly significant outbreak here, and it would shut off all of our trade and so be a very economically devastating outbreak for the beef producers in this country.
And to follow up on that, why is it so important for beef producers to be prepared in the case of an outbreak?
Yeah, I think they would have a great role in helping us control the outbreak quickly. One of the biggest indicators of how expensive it will be was how long does it last. So if they can identify it quickly and they can help us to stop it quickly, that will be to everyone's benefit.
Now, if I understand correctly, you and your team have been instrumental in working on the Secure Beef Supply program, and there's a number of resources that we as producers can take advantage of. Can you tell us about your role and how we might get access to those resources?
Yeah, so there is a website available, a Secure Beef Supply. If you just Google Secure Beef Supply, you'll come up with it. And there's guidelines on there for how to implement an enhanced biosecurity plan that you wouldn't necessarily be doing right now, but one that you're ready to implement as soon as foot and mouth disease came. Ways and guidance for how to implement good disease monitoring so that you identify FMD quickly. Just some good advice about continuity of business, how to manage movement, and how to keep good records so that you can be as helpful as possible in controlling the outbreak.
In that case. So last question, what additional advice would you give to us as beef producers, veterinarians, any other stakeholders in the industry for how we might prepare for this kind of outbreak or prevent it?
Yeah, I think even now, having good general biosecurity practices is good. Keeping good records about cattle health and cattle shipments, those are all really helpful things. If you're doing a lot of those things now, it'll be easier to sort of increase the diligence should an FMD outbreak comes. And keeping good tracing of where you get cattle from and where you send cattle is really important.
Yeah. As they say, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So thank you for all you're doing to help our industry prepare itself and hopefully prevent this disease from rearing its ugly head.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, if you want to learn more about the Secure Beef Supply Plan and learn how to write a biosecurity plan for your own operation, visit the website securebeef.org. And here to talk more about this topic is Dr. Julia Herman, beef cattle specialist veterinarian at NCBA. Dr. Herman, what do you say to producers who may not feel a strong sense of urgency around developing a biosecurity plan?
Sure. So I think biosecurity is something foundational that all producers have a sense of what they're already doing, but I think we just need to be more intentional about it. And so maybe we're talking or thinking about new animals coming onto the operation. Maybe we're thinking about the change in seasons. We know some people are getting a lot of snow. That changes your biosecurity and your disease risks to your animals. So maybe we just need to be thinking more of what's specifically happening on our operation that we can help improve biosecurity and ultimately the health of our animals.
So start with the basics. What would be a couple of considerations that producers should keep in mind as they begin developing a biosecurity plan?
To start off with, having that relationship with their veterinarian. So veterinarians are trained to look at all of these different biosecurity risks, and so having that extra set of eyes on the operation, I think, is very helpful. The other thing they can do is walk through the BQA daily biosecurity plan. We put all the topics together for producers to pay attention to and to really evaluate on their operation. It's customizable to whatever the goal is for that operation, whether you're a cow-calf, feedlot, stocker, backgrounder. Anybody can benefit from having this biosecurity plan, but those are some really quick first steps that people can do.
There's no doubt there's everything from New World screwworm to the continual threat of FMD. What is NCBA doing to try to protect our industry from these disease threats?
NCBA is really focused on the health of our cattle industry and the business continuity of all of our producers. And so starting with this daily biosecurity plan and all the foundation biosecurity principles that we're talking within the BQA program, but NCBA is also working with a USDA grant to improve secure beef supply educational resources. And so we have sector-specific resources that we're trying to develop to help each of our sectors improve their enhanced biosecurity for foot and mouth disease if it ever comes here. But we're also including transporters in that conversation. And so we know that it's going to affect our entire industry and we all need to be on the same page. And so getting all these resources out to not just producers, but veterinarians, our state vets, our USDA vets, really making that teamwork across the sector. That's what we're trying to do with all of this new research.
That's great to hear. Thank you for all your leadership in this effort. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, as you've just heard, creating your own biosecurity plan is an important task. Just visit securebeef.org or bqa.org for step-by-step instructions on how to create a plan that fits your operation. Still to come, we've got more on the topic of biosecurity and why it's important to have a plan for your cattle business. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Grazing and pasture management is really the critical first step in our cow-calf operation. Without good quality pastures, good quality forage, it'd be really tough to make it with a cow-calf operation.
National Cattlemen's Beef Association. NCBA is the oldest and largest national cattle industry organization working to defend your interests in Washington, D.C. And there are big benefits to being a member. You'll get news you can use in the National Cattlemen, email updates in the NCBA Beef Bulletin, plus big discounts only for NCBA members. Join by calling 866-233-3872 or online at ncba.org.
Welcome back. We've been talking about the importance of biosecurity and having a plan for your cattle business. That was the topic of a recent episode of the Cattlemen's Call podcast that focused on the value of emergency planning on farms and ranches.
For us, and especially in Nevada, we're focused a lot more on that natural disaster, I guess, emergency planning. I don't think it's a surprise to anyone. Nevada has a lot of fires. And so that's one thing we really try to get our guys thinking about early. You can get down in the chores and just getting stuff fed and getting things done, and you're not thinking about where your equipment is. If you need equipment, is it a dozer? Is it a bike? Is it something you need to get around and open gates? Do people know where those gates are at? That type of thing. And then obviously now disease is becoming more and more of a threat, and that will be an emergency. There are certain diseases, and we need these guys thinking about it. It's emergency biosecurity planning. Where are you going to go? Do you have enough stuff for your cows when you do? And are you sure you can get there? And do you need a permit from us to do it? So these are the conversations we want them thinking about today.
So Kip, and leading off of that too, how do you classify different emergencies or circumstances that arise? Is there a playbook that you look at and follow the steps in addressing, whether that's someone getting injured or something happening, maybe an outbreak of something like bird flu? What is the protocol?
So for me, I try to break it down in what can happen to the people, what can happen to the land and animals, and then what can we not planning for that we better be thinking, what's the next thing on the horizon, right? And then I deal with those. And people most likely is going to be an injury or, heaven forbid, a fatality. But that was really why I enjoyed meeting JJ and getting to do this with him together. Is the animal side. A lot of people, we do BQA and we talk about animal welfare, but the flip side is that is a human's interaction with the animals, and those can result in some really traumatic injuries to people. And so there's a big cross there in how we handle our livestock and safety.
Want to hear more of this discussion? Then check out the Cattlemen's Call podcast hosted by Lane Nordlund. You can listen to Cattlemen's Call on your phone, tablet, or laptop by scanning the QR code or subscribing wherever you stream podcasts. Still ahead, we'll tell you how you can take your beef industry advocacy to the next level. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Cattle producers across the country work hard to care for their animals and their land. The USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service is there to help. Find out how you can work with NRCS to develop a conservation plan for your operation. Find possible funding resources for implementing conservation practices, or get free expert advice on ways to improve your farm or ranch. Visit the website nrcs.usda.gov today.
Did you know you can get reimbursed for attending cattle industry educational events? The Rancher Resilience Grant helps cattle producers attend valuable programs such as Cattlemen's College and Stockmanship and Stewardship training sessions. Local, state, and national events qualify for the grant, and successful applicants can receive money back to help cover registration fees and hotel expenses. To apply for the Rancher Resilience Grant, go to ncba.org and click on the Producer tab.
This beef quality assurance tip is funded by the Beef Checkoff.
Hi, I'm Libby Bigler, and I'm here to give you a beef quality assurance tip on record keeping. Record keeping is a core component to beef quality assurance and is nearly impossible without accurate individual animal identification. Individual animal ID helps support tracking of an individual's performance records, but in the case of a disease outbreak, it also helps you track, identify, and potentially isolate any animals that have been exposed. Appropriate types of individual animal identification include ear tagging, tattooing, and RFIDs. For more information about types of identification that are approved under the BQA program and for why it's important, visit bqa.org.
The Beef Quality Assurance Program is funded by the Beef Checkoff.
The beef industry needs people who are willing to talk to consumers and answer their questions about how beef is produced from pasture to plate. Joining me now is Emma Kaufman. She's the 2025 Beef Advocate of the Year. Emma, congratulations, first of all.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Absolutely. Tell us just a little bit about your background in the beef business.
Absolutely. So I'm a little different than some of my previous people that have won this award. I'm not from agriculture. I'm first generation. Got exposure into the industry through stock shows, and that was just the kerosene on the flame. I went and got an animal science degree at A&M, got exposure to international livestock systems out in Australia, and because of COVID, had to come back in. And I just followed where God laid the door open. And so did nutrition consulting for a while, then got the opportunity to come back to Texas and did some feedlot data management. So got to see both sides of the cattle industry, and then went into IVF world. And now I do advocacy full time, traveling the country and sharing people's story.
Oh, that's an incredible story. We need more first generation folks like you. So tell us a little bit about how you share your story with those non-ag people.
Absolutely. So I think right now we see this big boom in technology, and right now more than ever we can share our story with just a little click on our phone. And what I do is I try to bring not only storytelling but factual information and trying to combat the fear-based marketing that is out there, but on both sides. And we need to educate the consumers about our sustainability, our management practice, and what all truly goes into our production agriculture behind being a saddle horn or behind a steering wheel of a tractor. There's technology, there's research, there's innovations, that there are so many different areas as a first generation you can be a part of that food supply. But sharing those stories and being transparent with our management practices is going to be our key into moving forward with our world.
Yeah, and maybe you can expound on that just a little bit. I'm curious, how have you seen that communication between yourself and the non-ag public really make a difference for our industry?
Absolutely. I think first you have to go in with a maybe different perspective and point of view. You can't just dive into the science real quick. You need to maybe go back to the basics and explain the fundamentals before you start getting to the nitty-gritty details. And I think that's really difficult for us sometimes. And we have been under persecution of maybe some groups historically that we've had our gates closed. And in a world full of gatekeepers, you need to be a gate getter.
I love that. In a world full of gatekeepers, we need to be a gate getter. I'm going to remember that one, Emma. That's fantastic.
I'm glad.
So just a couple other questions. What would you tell other folks in the industry, a couple of pieces of advice about how we can all do a better job sharing our story?
Absolutely. Don't be afraid to share your story. I think that every one of us has a strength, whether it's a research type of mindset to more of a communications mindset. And we can work together to publicize where we're going, where we've been, and moving forward with innovations too. But we can't keep the door closed. And in my personal opinion, I really think that being vulnerable is going to be the key for us to share our story and get people to understand and maybe change their perspective about what maybe misconceptions have been in the industry. So again, right now is the easiest way to tap into people's everyday life. We need to go ahead and be proactive versus reactive.
That's outstanding. Well, I can't tell you how impressed I am and thankful I am that somebody like you would choose the beef industry to get engaged in and use your God-given gifts and talents here. Thank you so much, Evan.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Now, anyone with a genuine interest in promoting the beef industry is encouraged to enroll in the Masters of Beef Advocacy program. There's no cost to participate, and you complete the program on your own schedule. Just visit the website, mastersofbeefadvocacy.com, for all the details. It's time now for this week's Legacy Photos, submitted by farming and ranching families from all across the country. Let's take a look. we'd like to feature your photos on Cattlemen to Cattlemen. Feel free to send them to us through the Cattlemen to Cattlemen Facebook page, and we may use them on a future episode. Well, that wraps up this edition of Cattlemen to Cattlemen. Thanks so much for spending time with us. We'll see you again next week, right here on RFD TV.